Pardon me, but you can't obstruct a required HOA inspection. I insist on entry, shrieked Gloria Affinity, HOA president and chronic overstepper. She was in full meltdown at the end of my gravel driveway, accompanied by 2 anxious HOA volunteers, when my wife Sarah coolly displayed her badge. Actually, Sarah said, retrieving a slim manila folder, "You can't trespass on federal land, and if you want to talk, bring a warrant." She opened the folder. Gloria's face went pale. There it was, her name on an active, unsealed federal warrant. "I'm Elliot Grange, a reserved engineer who enjoys cold brew and Nordic noir novels. My sanctuary is a snug, self-built cabin nestled in the wooded outskirts of Foxglove Summit, a so-called rustic community with an overbearing HOA. I kept to myself, paid dues promptly, and quietly installed a composting toilet. But that tranquility drew the wrong kind of scrutiny. Gloria Affinity, HOA president and spiritual heir to Nurse Ratched, once fined a man for hanging wind chimes in an emotionally disruptive way. Her latest fixation, cabin inspections, mine was next on her list. She claimed it was part of a quarterly rustic compliance program. I refused. She quoted bylaws. I asked her to leave. Gloria retaliated by showing up with binoculars and a digital thermometer, claiming it was for safety. Then came the emails. Asterisk, we're worried about mold. Neighbors reported smoke odors. Are you keeping bees? Asterisk, but Gloria didn't know Sarah wasn't just a quiet woman who baked sourdough and nurtured succulents. She worked for the U.S. Marshal Service and had little patience for self-important types brandishing fake rules like scepters. Trouble started on a Tuesday morning when Gloria strode up my driveway with what looked like a property assessment form and the confidence of someone rarely denied. "Elliot, we need to address your cabin's compliance status." I was on my porch sipping coffee, watching cardinals squabble over birdseed, savoring the serene morning that makes rural life worthwhile. "What compliance status?" She flashed a laminated card that seemed suspiciously DIY. "I'm authorized under Section 12-4 of the Community Guidelines to perform structural reviews. I'd read those guidelines thoroughly when I bought the property." Section 12-4 covered pool maintenance. "Gloria, that's about chlorine levels." She huffed as if I'd insulted her lineage. "Well, it's been revised." The nerve was almost admirable. 2 days later, she returned with reinforcements. A nervous man named Dennis, who kept apologizing, and a woman with a clipboard who looked desperate to be elsewhere. "Elliot, we've had multiple complaints about your cabin." I was repairing a loose deck board routine upkeep that somehow counted as suspicious in Gloria's world. "What complaints?" Dennis cleared his throat. "Well, reports of strange noises." I stared. "Strange noises," Gloria chimed in. "Hammering at odd times, loud music, potential unauthorized construction." The hammering was me fixing the deck they stood on. The music was Norwegian folk tunes at reasonable levels. The unauthorized construction was a bird feeder I'd put up last month. But Gloria was just warming up. She whipped out her phone, snapping photos of my cabin like it was a crime scene. "Is this structure permitted?" she asked, pointing at my fully legal, inspected cabin. "Yes, Gloria, I showed you the permits last year." She ignored me, still photographing. "And this composting toilet, does it meet county standards?" The toilet, installed by a licensed contractor, had passed 3 inspections. "It's in the file, Gloria." She scribbled on her clipboard. "We'll need to confirm that." The clipboard woman whispered to Dennis, who nodded uneasily. I began to see why the previous HOA president fled to Florida. Things escalated when Gloria extended her crusade beyond my property, quizzing neighbors about suspicious activity. From my cabin. Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor across the trail, later said Gloria had asked about odd smells and potential fire risks. The smells were likely my morning coffee or occasional grilled cheese. The fire risks, my fireplace used for warmth and ambience. Then came the nighttime visit. I was reading when I heard footsteps on my porch. Through the window I saw Gloria with a flashlight peering through my curtains. When I opened the door, she flinched like a caught thief. "Oh, Elliot, just checking for carbon monoxide leaks." She held a device that looked like a TV remote. Gloria, it's 9:30 p.m. She stood taller. Emergency inspections can occur anytime under new safety protocols. I'd never heard of these protocols. What protocols? She waved her dubious device. The ones approved at the last emergency board meeting. There was no such meeting. I read the minutes. The tipping point came when Gloria recruited her son, Trevor, for what she called enhanced surveillance. Trevor, who seemed more interested in video games, parked a folding chair at my property line and sat there with binoculars. When I asked what he was doing, he muttered about monitoring compliance. What does that mean? He shrugged. Mom says I need to watch for code violations. I looked at this 20-something kid staking out my cabin like it might sprout illegal extensions. What code violations, Trevor? He pulled out a laminated sheet. Unauthorized changes, improper waste disposal, and, he squinted, excessive bird attraction. My single bird feeder was apparently excessive. When Gloria appeared the next week, clipboard in one hand, bolt cutters in the other, Sarah met her at the property's edge. Gloria wasn't alone. She'd brought Dennis, the clipboard woman, and 2 strangers, resembling a small posse. Elliot, we require immediate access for a mandatory safety inspection. Sarah, still in her Marshal Service attire, stepped forward. Ma'am, do you have a warrant? Gloria's laugh was sharp. This is my jurisdiction. I don't need a warrant. That's when Sarah retrieved a file she'd been holding for weeks. Sarah's not just good at her job. She's exceptional. When someone like Gloria wields fake authority to harass others, Sarah takes note. Months earlier, out of curiosity, she'd run Gloria's name through the system. The results were telling. 3 years ago, Gloria used her HOA title to secure a fraudulent business license in a nearby county, posing as a government official to bypass proper procedures. Sarah had flagged it to a federal task force on identity fraud. This week, it returned as an active warrant for impersonating a government official, a serious federal offense. The evidence was damning. Fake documents, a forged seal, and emails where Gloria claimed to be a county licensing official. Sarah had it all. Gloria's transformation was swift, from HOA tyrant to flustered suburbanite in seconds. I was just helping the community, she stammered. Sarah stayed calm, professional. Ma'am, you posed as a county official to approve a contractor's license. That's a federal crime. Gloria's volunteers backed away like she was contagious. Dennis looked ill. I was just helping Bob start his landscaping business. Gloria pleaded. Sarah held up her phone and falsified government documents to do it. The bolt cutters hit the ground with a clang that echoed through the trees. Gloria tried to pivot. This is harassment. You're using your position to intimidate a volunteer. Sarah smiled. Ma'am, I'm off duty. This is a citizen's arrest based on an active federal warrant. She showed the paperwork. You have the right to remain silent. Gloria's face cycled through colors. Red, white, then a sickly green. You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. Sarah was already calling for backup. That's not real authority, ma'am. Federal law trumps HOA bylaws. The next 20 minutes were bizarre. Gloria oscillated between demanding to speak to Sarah's supervisor and insisting it was all a misunderstanding. I never claimed to be a county official, but Sarah had the emails. In this one, you signed as Gloria Affinity, County Licensing Coordinator, a title that doesn't exist. Gloria tried another tack. I was just streamlining the process. Sarah shook her head. You created fake credentials and charged $300 to process a license you couldn't legally handle. $300. Gloria had been running a side hustle, leveraging her HOA title to pose as a government official. When Deputy Collins arrived, Gloria made a final plea. This is about my cabin inspections. She's retaliating because I found violations. The deputy, a patient man, reviewed the warrant. Ma'am, this warrant is from 3 years ago. It's unrelated to cabin inspections. Gloria's mouth flapped wordlessly. As the deputy reached for his cuffs, she erupted. This is unconstitutional. I demand a lawyer. Sarah, the actual authority, watched as Gloria was escorted to the patrol car, ranting about constitutional overreach and deep state compost toilets. I sipped coffee on my porch, watching 3 years of petty tyranny meet real consequences. At the next HOA meeting, now live-streamed due to demand, I gave a brief talk titled Boundaries, Warrants, and Why You Leave People's Cabins Alone. Sarah sat beside me, knitting a scarf that read BIOB equals Bring Your Own Badge. Gloria's resignation was tearful and immediate. The new HOA president set a simple rule: no smoke, bees, or bodies. Leave it alone. The meeting ended with applause. Gloria pleaded down to community service and 2 years probation, assigned to clear trail overgrowth behind my cabin. Sarah occasionally waved from the porch. The woman who'd obsessed over my composting toilet was now picking up literal trash. The irony wasn't lost on us. When Gloria saw Sarah the first day, she turned scarlet and muttered, "This is humiliating." Sarah just smiled and kept knitting.